Hey everybody, what's going on? Welcome to the review discussion of the New Mutants with me, the real Gino. Joining me is my bud Rob from Smirking Gun Reviews. Rob, how you doing today, man?
I am doing well. Thank you for having me, and can't wait to talk about this.
Okay, I will tell you guys right now what we're gonna do is we're probably gonna talk spoilers. So what I want to do first, what I want to do because we have to. I mean, they made us wait this long for the movie. We're allowed to talk spoilers. But what we're gonna do is I want you to give your initial thoughts, or just initial. Should they go see it? Should they rent it? Whatever. That way, if people don't want to be spoiled, you can they can get it, get what they're looking for here before we start talking about everything in the movie. So why don't you go ahead and share? Would you recommend this movie, and how would you recommend they see it if you recommend it?
It's right now the theater. Right now, look, I paid. There was a 30% discount at the IMAX for my showing. A lot of theaters aren't charging you full price to see movies right now, so I would jump on it. If you want to see it, jump on it now. I also don't think it's going to stay that long at the theaters. I think it's going to end up on Disney Plus really soon. But otherwise, look, if you're in for just you want to just see some Marvel-ish, X-Men-ish stuff, if you're starving for just to go to the movies, I mean, it's a quick hour and a half. You'll be in and out of there. If you didn't like X-Men Dark Phoenix or X-Men Apocalypse, you're probably not going to be blown away by this movie. But it's not those movies. So I recommend it as far as if you can rent it for cheap, if you can see it for cheap, if you can go to a matinee, don't pay ridiculous amounts of money for this movie. And if they offer it for like $20 or $25 on demand, don't rent it or wait till Disney Plus. But I mean, it's a hard movie to recommend, especially this kind of movie. Once we start talking about it, I think you guys will understand why I'm recommending it kind of on the fence, but it's not the worst thing in the world. And it's definitely probably not the worst thing that's come out at the movies already, since it's probably better than Unhinged.
Okay.
It doesn't have Russell Crowe though. It doesn't have Russell Crowe, but
this movie could have used Russell Crowe.
Yep.
Okay. I'm with you on that. The cheaper, the better. If you can wait for Disney Plus, if you can wait for a $4 or $5 rental on Vudu or something, do it. If you want to see it on theater, if you just can't wait to get to the theaters, yeah, you're right. There's worse. I mean, I think I was more entertained by Unhinged than I was this movie. That being said, I didn't think this movie was the train wreck we thought it was going to be. But we'll get into that more. So yeah, the cheaper, the better. Okay, so the basic setup for this movie, and I'm going to bring up my notes here because, though this movie was an hour and a half, there's a lot going on somewhat story-wise with characters and everything. We see the destruction of Danny Moonstar's village, and she thinks there's a creature there, even though they said it was like a storm. She ends up at this, we'll call it a hospital, where she meets a colorful cast of characters. And if you've seen the trailer, you kind of know what's going on. Now, we talked before where, look, I know who these characters are, but I never followed them a ton in the comics or anything. So the first thing I want to ask you is, were they pretty true to the characters themselves?
Well, yeah, I don't like
there they are.
You mean it's number one, number two. I got number 99 and 100 sitting there somewhere. For the most part, like right off the bat, other than Magic being part of it, Ilyana Rasputin's character, the team was pretty much the team from the very beginning. So you had Ronnie, or Rain, however you want to pronounce it. They pronounce it Rain in this. I always said Ronnie, but I guess the H is silent. They had Cannonball. They had Danny Moonstar. They had Sunspot. And the other one I believe was an Asian character in the book. So Ileana took her spot. But otherwise, especially with Ileana. Now I know we talked before this. If you didn't like her in the movie, she's exactly like she is pretty much in the comic book. Depending on what iteration, mostly, but these days, that's exactly who she is. Maisie Williams's Wolfsbane was pretty accurate. The accent seemed a little off. I feel like she usually had a thicker accent, and I thought with her being from over the pond that might be a little easier for her, but it just seemed a little too subtle. As far as Sam Guthrie, Cannonball, played by Heaton, he did a really good job. So did the guy who plays Roberto. He did a pretty good job. Danny Moonstar, because she's an amnesia character and doesn't know her powers and stuff, she was the fish out of water. So she was the one that had to really develop as a character. So she had to come into her own. So I'm not going to say that they didn't do her justice. They were trying to set her up as something. The doctor character, she's nothing. She's just thrown in there. And the dad character was also, even though I love Adam Beach, I loved seeing Adam Beach in this movie. He wasn't anything in there. And I mean, we'll get into spoilers, but there was another character, and they partially did it justice, and they partially, I was like, what? Why even have it if you're gonna do it half-assed?
Well, but I know the doctor character. I see. I did a little bit of research after seeing it just to find out if I could see, are they doing these characters justice or whatever. And the doctor character, and we'll talk about her motivation here in a bit. But it turns out her character has like a history with the X-Men and things like that, or maybe it was X-Force. I can't exactly remember. She has like a history of helping them, even though she has like no ambition to be a superhero. And we'll talk about her character arc, but I think with her character, they counted on comic fans to know who she was, to pull off what they pulled off with her in the end. Because in the comics, she has a relationship with like the X-Men and stuff. And then, with what they did with her, it's like, haha, we got you, comic fans. That's what I got out of her character. But yeah, she's just there to, get in the good guy's way, pretty much. A setup, because from what I understand, this is supposed to be 3 movies. With, of course, what happened with Disney buying Fox and everything. That ain't gonna happen. If it does, I will be really surprised. But being that, how long was this thing? It was on the shelf for 2 years. It was in development for like 4 or 5 total. I just can't see them, wanting to waste these characters if they even want to use them for this new stuff. For the MCU stuff, I think they would rather start them over with either new people or just start them over, in a new story. Because I mean, come on, if they're going to do mutants, they're not going to do those characters. They're going to do the ones that everyone wants to see, your Wolverines, your Cyclopses, your Storms, and so on and so forth. But okay, one thing. Okay, the plot. Let's talk about the plot. Are you as curious as I am to know what this movie was going to be before they started making all the changes? Because I can't even see what this movie was going to be. I mean, would it be similar, or would it be... Because I know after the trailer came out, everyone thought, ooh, a mutant horror movie. And they were like, crap, now we got to make a mutant horror movie. So do you think they would have made many changes to the story, given that they had to add the horror elements, the somewhat lame horror elements, if you ask me? I mean, it was definitely PG-13 horror.
Oh yeah.
But how much do you think the story would have changed?
I think that this movie, when they talk about how they were going to do reshoots, that didn't happen. This movie really would have benefited from those reshoots. And by reshoots, I mean, if there was more to this movie to put it in there, make it at least another half an hour long. I would have actually sat through another half an hour of this, if I, knew that they were going to set up a little bit more character stuff. Mm-hmm. Because, what was this movie? It was just a bare bones cast with very little going on ever. Like, this is supposed to be a hospital that you can tell pretty early on that it's obviously been abandoned and repurposed by this doctor and her corporation to work with these mutants.
No. It was, remember, they insinuated that she worked for Xavier, remember? Huh? Isn't that the clue? The guy's like,
they did this?
Yeah, the guy's like, who do you think? Who do you think they're going to make us X-Men? And that was like supposed to be they were supposed to be drawing you away from that, or drawing you to that. They're going to go to the X-Men. Sure, they are.
They never drew me to that, but
no. I see. Here's the thing: if you knew the comics, or at least and had an idea of some of the characters and the stories, I knew exactly where they were going from it from the first time I saw a trailer. Yeah. And I was right. I was hoping they were going to show something, and maybe they would have had a mid-credit or an after-credit scene. Had the movies were going to happen, maybe they would have shown that big twist, and we will talk about it in a bit. Okay. But they had to just, kind of point towards it in this, because you're not going to promise people this thing and then not deliver it. They'd rather just save it, for the MCU. But I don't know. They were insinuating that, you're going to be X-Men. Here's my thing though. Okay. They never really specified if this was in of course it's good. It would have been in the Fox X-Men universe. Okay.
Yeah.
How the heck could you have Colossus's sister and him, her thinking that this was something for the X-Men? Because she would have been like, and granted, they never mentioned Colossus.
No.
But I mean, we all know it's Colossus' sister. Don't you think that they would have done something? He would have tried to find her, or she would have wondered where he was. Why has he never come to visit me? Why has he never contacted me? If I'm not mistaken, didn't one of the dudes have a phone or a camera or something? I can't remember. I remember he was taking pictures or something. There was ways for them to, I don't know. The plot holes just really bugged me. The X-Men plot holes. Because I hated that they asked Moonstar, do you know what mutants are? Yes. And then they start talking about the X-Men. Of course she knows what mutants are. It's just weird that do you know what mutants are? By the way, they've been in the world and saving people for years now. Of course she knows. I don't know. Just the plot holes and some of the dialogue just drove me nuts. But anyway, okay, we can talk some spoilers now. Let's start. Let's start with the twist. They're not for the X-Men, right? I can't see Xavier running a place like this. You knew exactly probably what. There he is. There's that sinister guy. And that's what I'm talking about. The movie is promising in a future film you're going to get Mr. Sinister. That's a great idea. I want to see that dude on screen. Bryan Cranston has said he'd like to play him. What? Yeah, he had some story, and he's like, they were naming some characters, and he's like, yeah, I've heard of that guy. So they promise him the Essex Corporation. Of course, we know what it is. Any fan knows what it is. but now we're promising nothing. And if I could have seen them having him in a mid credit scene. I imagine you feel the same way.
Yeah, they've been toying with us with this Essex thing for several movies.
Mm-hmm.
There was the end of one of the X-Men movies where there was a case that said the Essex Corporation. Deadpool 2 dealt with the Essex Corporation and that orphanage. And then part of this, when you think about what they were doing to the kids, it was basically the same thing that they did to the kids in Deadpool 2. And like her flashbacks actually made me think that they were showing clips from Logan.
It looked very similar. Well, in the credits, it does say clips from Logan.
Oh,
and the whole time I'm like, where did they show clips from Logan? And that's probably it. I didn't even put that because I did think they covered some of that in Logan. So that's probably was clips from Logan because that's what there was. It said clips from Logan in the credits.
Yeah. So they've been teasing us with this character, dancing around it for years now, and still nothing. And I imagine that we would have seen him. We would have seen him if this had gotten off if the Disney thing hadn't happened. Whether we wanted it to or not. I mean, who knows what this movie would have actually been like had the thing not gone through. Would we already be watching the sequel? Like instead of talking about this one, would we be talking about the sequel to it? But it's just disappointing because it just shows like this movie had potential. It had a lot of great ideas. It was looking to want to pay off things that we'd seen, and for hardcore fans that had been paying attention, so that later, like in the second movie, we'd get this great big reveal. But instead, all we get is this doctor who just the people I work for, the ones in charge, that was so frustrating.
Yeah.
And then, like you said, Colossus's sister, like Colossus wouldn't be standing outside the gate with the X-Men by now. And her powers, she's so powerful. She could have teleported out of there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they never explained
she's
how
one of the most powerful teleporters on the team. She goes through limbo and comes out wherever else she wants to go. So she wasn't really stuck there, but this was for people who don't know the characters. This was I guess we're going to introduce you to 5 more mutants that John Q. Public doesn't know because, if you're not Wolverine, if you're not Magneto or Professor X, most people don't really know on the street know who any of these people are. So they can do whatever they want. So it's frustrating for us, fulfilling to the people who don't know, and then you make a movie that doesn't really satisfy anybody.
Yeah, they the whole teleporting thing, if they would have even just explained why can't she teleport out of this force field? They never explained why like if this force field had certain like abilities to it. Like it stifled their abilities or something. The scene near the end where she had them all in those bubbles, one of the people's arms was sticking out of the force field. The cast was sticking out of the force field. I'm like, how is this? That drove me a little nuts. But yeah, if they would have, if it would have been something where Ileana's past kept her from wanting to explore outside of the force field, right? Like the stuff that had happened to her kept her feeling like she had to be shut in. That would have made more sense than just, oh, she has teleportation powers, but she can't get past that for some reason. That drove me nuts. And then sticking with her character, they definitely, even though they were pushing Wolfsbane and Moonstone's characters kind of as the forefront, and then their romance too. Is the romance something from the comics? No, it's something they put in there. Okay, even though they were supposed to be the forefront characters, they definitely pushed Ileana a lot. Especially when she's like, "You guys get out of here. I'll take care of this." Dun, 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 when she goes to fight the big bad at the end, or the supposed big bad, I guess you want to call it. That's another thing I want to talk about is The Big Bear. For my biggest disappointment with the Big Bear, other than the fact it was just a big bear, I thought it was going to be Wendigo. And I would have been okay with that if it was Wendigo, but then all of a sudden it's just like it's this big bear and the power of love, you know.
Yeah, I'm tired of the by the skin of their teeth waiting for somebody to wake up, while everybody else is, and she in that line where she's like, I can't. I'm so sick of that trope of the I can't, and then all of a sudden you're bigger than the bear, kid. Oh, I am. Oh, snap.
Yeah. And then it's like,
and everything goes back to normal.
She's petting it and saying, she's petting it and going, it'll be okay. You can go to sleep now. It's like she was putting it down.
Yeah.
But oh God,
her powers are to show her code name is Mirage, and she's able to show you your greatest fears, and it works really well because they're really believable. Like she had the mark, some of these things become real. But it really was still just a mirage. So as soon as she was able to control her fear, there really wasn't to me any need for a standoff. She just should go, it's not really there in the first place. But they needed to have a sun's getting real low Hulk moment, got a dog whisperer, the bear, I guess, like
that's exactly what I was thinking. It's like, is she the bear whisperer now? Okay, let's stick with Ilyana because again they pushed her to the forefront.
Yeah.
Okay, the smiley face people. What was that? Is that anything?
I think, well, I don't know if it was anything from the comics. I think it was just supposed to represent people that had done bad things to her and laughed about it. It was also kind of interesting that those characters kind of resembled the episode of Buffy they were watching. They were watching Hush with the guys with the don't talk and have that kind of elongated bodies and stuff. Kind of made me think like her fears were also partially from what they, maybe what she was transferring on them. But I thought it was more like a psychological trauma that she had maybe suffered at the hands of these people that laughed and kind of put the smiley face over, because it probably happened when she was a child, before she got tough, before she got the chip on her shoulder and everything. Because I actually really enjoyed her, but I think one of the main reasons she was pushed to the forefront is because when this was filmed, I mean, Anya Taylor-Joy was like big time, like big time after the witch and after the Shyamalan Split. And other things, that she was really on a roll. And even though Maisie Williams gets the first credit, it was Anya Taylor-Joy's movie to me. And yeah, you're right. They really put Moonstar and Wolfsbane to the forefront. But once she's the most powerful person, and in the book, she's really wild and powerful and gets in your face and is brash. And honestly, that bit at the end, I know not everybody liked it, but it was the only time I got goosebumps in the entire movie where I actually felt like this movie, if this was the whole movie, I was ready to go. And unfortunately it wasn't. But yeah, those smiley guys, I don't think really were anything other than they were just seeing their different fears, like Sam seeing the coal mine and Roberto seeing the dead girlfriend. These were all just things that she was projecting out at all of them, and the priest for Wolfsbane. Yeah, all were just psychological traumas. None of this was really from the book.
Okay. Yeah, because, they insinuated that, if she was younger, she'd have to basically go to a happy place because of the trauma, right? And that created the place she went to. It didn't exist already. She created it. And then, I was wondering if they were going to bring Lockheed alive eventually. I knew it would probably happen eventually, but the fact that it was a hand puppet from her childhood, is somewhat interesting. I think they could have used a little more of that. him being alive kind of thing.
Yeah.
They never really explained it, other than she would go to her happy place and it was real now,
Yeah.
but and
That whole thing was skipped. Like just saying that she created, like I don't believe it. I don't believe that's her doing Limbo. Limbo was just in the Marvel books was a place,
yeah,
and her part of her power was going there. And the thing with Lockheed being a puppet, I had heard that Lockheed was in it. When I saw it was a puppet, I was like, oh. I was actually kind of happy at first. I was like, okay, good, because Lockheed's Kitty Pryde's dragon, not
right,
Ileana's, okay? So I was just like, maybe that was something that Kitty gave her as a,
yeah,
because she liked Lockheed. And it's like, oh, if you like Lockheed so much, here's this puppet, to carry around. But then it comes alive, and even though I should be mad that I loved that part. Lockheed, we got Lockheed in the movie, even if it was like fan servicey or whatever. I really dug that moment. It was too brief.
yeah.
But it did feel off. It did feel off still, but I'm trying to find the nuggets that I really did dig. I mean,
Well, the last 20 minutes of the movie, like all the action stuff, I was enjoying, even though I was disappointed it was a big bear, even though the force field doctor was pretty weak. I did enjoy like the fights in the hallway with, the happy or the smiley face people or whatever they were called. Even though the effects weren't the greatest,
no.
they definitely looked pretty fake. I mean, I like the detail and stuff of like Magic's armor, and things like that. That stuff looked cool. But the graphics were pretty inconsistent throughout this. Some things looked really bad and some things looked really good. I did enjoy when they finally made Wolfsbane more like a werewolf. I know the character can turn into a full wolf, and which, by the way, can she not get away from the Starks? I mean, was that not your first thought?
Yeah. Well, actually, my first thought was I was torn over whether I was happy that they just used a regular live action wolf, or if we would have had to put up with a bad CGI.
Oh yeah.
Like werewolf looking character. And I kind of just landed on, well, this is the only one they're doing, so fine, she's just a dog. They even called her just a dog too, and I was like, yeah, because the Wolfsbane in the comics looks terrifying. She looks like a wolf. She does not look like just a dog. Even yes, in this first iteration, it is pretty dog-like this right here. Very first, right? That is. But over the years, they evolved that look to more of an animal, like she could be kind of part both, and as she controlled it better. So that was fine. But yeah, the CGI was spotty at best all the time. But yeah, getting that she was a wolf and a Stark for freaking 8 years. I mean, she looked like it was like Nymeria. She just changed into her dire wolf.
Exactly.
That was a big wolf.
Yeah, that was my first thought. I'm like, oh, we're back to Game of Thrones for a minute. But yeah, all in all, I expected this movie to be just, I mean, a mess. I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know what they changed. I expected it to be a mess, and I was surprised it wasn't. That being said, for a lot of this movie, while there were certain things here and there I thought were okay, until it got near the end, it didn't surprise me with anything.
No.
It didn't. I wasn't 100% interested in the characters. I mean, again, Ileana, I couldn't stand for a while. Then you start learning her tragedies, and it's like, okay, now I'm the jerk. But still, though, just the way she treated people was terrible. Some of the writing was not great. Like especially some of the stuff the character just said, it's like, who wrote this?
Yeah. A lot of people are saying that it was like YA stuff a little bit here and there, and I definitely see that. The story, like you say, it's not a mess, but I think it is a mess. It's just an entertaining mess for some of it.
Yeah.
It's rushed. It needed reshoots. It needed reshoots don't always work out, but this one I think could have benefited from more another pass through, a little bit more character work. Like I said, I would have sat through more of it if I'd known like we were going to get more character work on all these people, because Roberto's character just was an asshole. Yeah, he's an asshole in the comic books, but we would get a little bit more than just I'm washing the dishes and I'm an asshole. He was washing the dishes the whole movie.
Pretty much.
Every time I go to him, he's just sitting there washing the dishes, and it's like, great, the Latino guy's doing the cleaning.
Yeah, it's like, well, it was either that or making out with fake Ileana in the pool.
No, the Brazilian Latino, sorry.
But yeah, it was man, I don't know. I mean, yeah, it was definitely a mess. It just wasn't the mess I thought it was going to be. I didn't know what to expect. It was still a mess. I agree. It's just I don't know what I expected. I expected it to look like X-Men Origins Wolverine, I think. I expected just it to feel pieced together in a way, because it's just like, I mean, if you saw, I don't know if you ever got to catch the Origins Wolverine where it got leaked first.
Yeah.
Where it had like claws where the effects were going. And then when you finally saw the effects, you were like, man, they should have just left the words there. It would have looked better.
Yeah.
I was expecting a mess like that for this. I mean, yeah, the effects were spotty, but at least they were complete. I mean, it felt like a movie. It did feel like a setup movie because it is. I felt like there were some stories they were going to cover. They were kind of teasing that, you've got the two guys liking Ileana a little bit. I could see that. And it's like, oh, don't be setting up. I know it ain't going anywhere, but if you were going to go somewhere, don't set up a love triangle. I've seen too many love triangles and too many YA movies. You need to do something else. Because they were kind of teasing that, Cannonball was kind of into her too, a little bit. I could see it. And then, of course, the other guy's like, I'm going to marry her, But, it is a little disappointing that, we talked about Sinister. We aren't going to get him yet again. It would have been cool just to see like a silhouette of him in a mid-credit scene or something. Have him kind of turn his head. You kind of see some of the white of his face and, him kind of chuckle or something. Yeah. I don't know, something. But no, we get nothing. I'm sure you stayed for all the credits. There's nothing there, and because they know there's nothing there. Yeah. Even though I guess it did pretty well on the preview night, I'm sure it'll do well this weekend. Of course it will, because people are happy to come back to the movies.
Yeah, the girl next to me was loving it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, let's talk about experiences.
Yeah.
Go ahead, man.
On one end, I couldn't get through because somebody was taking up 3 seats for one person. It was all their shit on 2 seats next to them, like they were living there, getting ready to move in. And then the other people tried to like get within the 6 feet social distancing thing that they had set up, worked out, and I had to be like, back off.
Yeah,
I don't like to be that guy, but I'm like this, like, no, this is set up for a reason. They really tried to get like right next to me because they just were like, well, nobody's here. No, I'm not nobody. All right, and they didn't have masks on. As soon as they got in there, they took their masks off. But the girl, she was scared out of her mind throughout the entire thing. I thought she was watching like Nightmare on Elm Street. And she was just through the whole thing, and I'm like, my goodness, girl! Like if a fly flew in her face, she'd probably knock herself out.
So did they oversell?
No, they just didn't want it. There was like people at a concert when you see that there's open seats and you go, well, nobody's stopping me from moving down. So it's like they couldn't even, just sit right behind me or whatever. Yeah. I don't care as long as I don't have to see you, like right next to me. And nobody was in there checking at all. Yeah. I didn't see one theater worker in that room. I thought
I saw one pop in, but it was pretty early. like even before, I think it was during previews.
Yeah.
But yeah, with me, there wasn't a ton of people there, and it did look like people were sticking to their seats because at the AMC's, of course, you would pick your seat,
Yeah.
and it would X out seats around you.
Yep.
And it looked pretty close to what I remember the map looking like. So I was fine with that. The problem I had is, boy, we've been gone from movie theaters a while, but man, the bad habits did not stop. I had to listen to a guy who was to the right of me. There was maybe, 3-4 seats in between us. And you would have thought that every line, every line of this movie was comedy gold. I had to listen to this noise the entire movie. The entire movie, even during the scary stuff. And of course, yes, they would drop a one-liner during the scary stuff here and there, right? And it still wasn't that funny. But yeah, it was every line the people were saying. And that was driving me nuts. Most of the people were pretty good in there, but there's always one, and he was the one. I kind of gave him that just kind of look, you know.
Yeah, I did one of those.
And he looked at me, but then it continued. And it's like, oh, come on. And even if the movie's funny, I get it, laugh. But you can't tell me the jokes in this movie were that funny.
No, there was nothing really to laugh at in this movie. And I mean, not to get off the subject right away, but if it wasn't for the actors, I think that that's really why this movie was at all entertaining.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't the writers, and it wasn't really the direction. It was the actors trying their best to pull something out of nothing, doing the best they had with what they got. And also, just as a throwaway, Mark Snow did the score to this movie, which surprised me. If you don't know who Mark Snow is, he's famous for doing the X-Files music.
Okay.
Which, in retrospect, would have worked in kind of a scary, if they were going
makes a lot of sense.
Thing, like Andy works for Fox, like it's the Fox property and everything. So yeah, I mean, if it wasn't for the cast, even the doctor and Adam Beach as the dad, everybody I think tried to do their best with what they had. And I think that's the reason why there's even a little bit of entertainment value in this. It wasn't the special effects, even though there was a couple moments at the end that I did enjoy special effects wise, and action wise. But other than that, I mean, scenes seemed to not go on long enough to explain things well enough. The editing was bad. It was just cut away to a scene that didn't. It was like Justice League, where nothing seemed to be connected. And in this hospital where they're supposed to be learning how to deal with their powers, there was really none of it. There was none of it. It's just therapy where she just goes control and, hey, you want to talk? No? Okay, fine.
Yeah, it was talking sessions and them roofing her tea.
Yeah, exposition. Even though it seemed like she always knew what they were doing.
Yeah.
Anyway, there was a scene when she was looking at him in the pool, and then you cut away and she's sleeping, and then the fire breaks out, and then she goes, "Oh,
yeah."
Like I was like, weren't you just watching him?
Yeah, it was pretty convenient her sleep, because for a while I'm like, when is she sleeping? Because she's watching them sleep. She's getting data for Mr. Sinister, of course. And of course she's texting Mr. Sinister. I just like
in this was bad.
I just like to imagine Mr. Sinister on his phone, just eliminate her.
Isn't
Take more DNA and eliminate her. But yeah, it's like, man, when do you sleep? When do you sleep? And then it's like, hey, she's asleep. We can sneak out. And then next it's like, yeah, we drugged her. Now we can sneak out.
Yeah.
It was, I think, if this movie would have, you're right, it needed some reshoots. It definitely needed a script overhaul. Especially though, again, I know they were planning for 3 movies. You would have to reshoot the whole movie
Yeah.
if you were just planning on it being one.
Yeah.
I get that. I mean, you're going to get that setup feel to it because that's what they're doing. But a script overhaul, an extra 15, 20 minutes at minimum of extra content because you had to set up all these characters, with all their fears and everything, plus have the side thing of the doctor, plus then all of a sudden the big action scene at the end. There's just too much there and too many characters for an hour and a half runtime.
Yeah.
And I know they needed to get this out. I know they weren't supposed to be able to. Apparently, there was something saying they couldn't release it streaming first. There was some contract thing where it had to go to theaters. Which again, you're right. I could see it lasting maybe 2 weeks, 3, depending on how well Tenet does and whatever else. I haven't even looked to see what else is coming out. I mean, you got Bill and Ted this weekend. So whatever else is coming out, that's going to depend on how long it stays up. But you've seen how many movies they're releasing like that have already been in theaters. I mean, the list of AMC's there's classics. There's stuff like that's already out on like recently on VOD, like Far From Home and things like that they're bringing back to theaters. So they tried to bring Trolls to theaters. They tried, I don't know how long something like this is going to last. And I could see them going, okay, we fulfilled our contract. Now we're going to put it on VOD. I could see that happening in this movie. And honestly, that's probably the best thing to happen to it, because if people want to see it and don't want to pay much for it, that's the way to go. I mean, I got it on an A-list ticket. So, it just counted towards my subscription. And so I technically paid nothing but my subscription fee.
Yeah.
And that was perfect for me. So, but yeah, it definitely, it's hard for me to recommend theater to see it. I mean, IMAX didn't really do anything for it other than it's big and it's loud. There's no 3D or nothing. I think, I gotta say, like the bear and the sword and everything, that stuff might have looked kind of cool in 3D, but it wouldn't have been enough to justify an IMAX cost. But yeah, for me, just long story short, cheaper the better if you want to see it. And we talked about this at first. I want you to tell everyone again how you feel they should see it.
Well, now that we've talked about the whole thing, and like I said at the beginning, I don't really. If you're a fan, an X-Men fan, a hardcore like the New Mutants look, and the group that I've talked to in the past about comics, most of them don't follow the New Mutants either. But for those of you that are hardcore, that look, this is what you're getting. It's not going to be much. So wait till you can rent it. Wait till it's on a streaming service for those hardcore fans. Don't waste your money. If you're just Joe Q Public and you're starved for entertainment, it's gonna look. You're probably gonna find something like we did, enjoyment out of it. Probably more out of it because we're way more critical about it than I think the average viewer is. I know there are people out there that are really excited actually to still see this movie. And so I don't want to take away from their experience and say, don't go see it. Because obviously there's an audience for this movie that just wants this, finally release it like the Snyder Cut. I almost would recommend the Snyder Cut more than this movie. And I haven't even seen the Snyder Cut. But for, cheap as possible, go in the afternoon. You don't have to drag your whole family for $100 night at the movies to see New Mutants. Definitely better with a party. I don't recommend doing anything dangerous drinking wise before any movie, but if you watch it at home and you have a few beers, you probably really enjoy it. But otherwise it's a bit of nothing because it doesn't really matter. It's not going to carry on further. It's just a movie that you saw and then it's over and you move on to the next movie.
Yeah. Well, Rob, thank you so much for joining me for this. I knew you would be very helpful with this review because I know you follow these characters. And Guys, if you want the latest comic reviews, there's a lot of TV show reviews. Follow Rob's channel. It's Smirking Gun Reviews. I put a link to it in the description below. If you haven't subscribed to him and you're subscribed to me, you should be subscribed to him too. That's going to be all for this review. For the New Mutants review, I'm the real Gino. That's Rob from Smirking Gun Reviews. We'll see you later.